And so I went and found people. I said, who can help me turn my workshop into a digital course? And I don't know if it's the universe or it's the Facebook algorithm, but I landed on your platform, and that's what happened.
I'm Amy Porterfield, ex-corporate girl turned CEO of a multi-seven-figure business. But it wasn't all that long ago that I lacked the confidence, the budget, and the time to focus on growing my small but mighty business. Fast forward past many failed attempts and lessons learned, and you'll see the business I have today. One that changes lives and gives me more freedom than I ever thought possible. One that used to only exist as a daydream. I created the Online Marketing Made Easy podcast to give you simple, actionable, step-by-step strategies to help you do the same. If you're an ambitious entrepreneur or one in the making who's looking to create a business that makes an impact and a life you love, you're in the right place, friend. Let's get started. Welcome back to another episode of Online Marketing Made Easy. I'm thrilled about today's episode because we're going to learn how mastering the basics of growing an email list can have a massive impact on your business. My guest today, Sara Mayer, is a prime example of how focusing on building your email list can transform your business. Sara went from a list of 50 email subscribers to building an engaged list of over 10,000 subscribers. Before understanding the strategy and power an email list can have, Sara was hesitant about sending out a bunch of emails, and she feared people would be annoyed with her emails or they would unsubscribe. These are common challenges that people face when they're starting an email list. But now Sara really understands the value her email list creates for her business and how emails that speak to her audience can make all the difference. So we're going to talk about really segmenting your email list to make sure that you're speaking to the right people at the right time. So Sara is a consultant, trainer, and speaker who helps entrepreneurs maximize productivity and solve problems. Today, she's sharing how she utilized her email list to grow her business and how you too can master this skill. You know how I feel. Email is one of the most important assets in your business. And I know it's hard to get started. I know there's a lot of mental blocks here, but once you do, it gets so much easier. And Sara is going to prove that. So let's dive in. Hey there, Sara. Thanks so much for coming on the show.
Oh, Amy, thank you for having me. It's such a pleasure.
Well, I've been very excited to talk about this topic because it is a hot topic on this podcast, which is obviously all about growing an email list, and you've had incredible success. So first, let's talk about you in general. How did you first start your business? I think that's an interesting story.
Yeah. So I, like many people, started in corporate America. I was in higher education and nonprofit leadership. And one of the things that happened was one of my former bosses asked me to go figure out what the top people in the sales team were doing and put together a training for the people who were struggling.
Yep.
And I'm very analytical, which many people know. And so I said, well, I have to go sit with these top people. And I watched the top people in the company, and I couldn't believe they were our top performers. And I went and asked for a bunch of data and found out that they actually were not the top performers when you divided it by 40 hours in the work week. They were the top workers. They were out working everybody, answering emails all the time, 24 hours a day, working Christmas, Easter, all those things. And I said to the C-suite, is this the culture we want to have here? That in order to be successful, you just have to outwork everybody. And they said no. And I said, well, let me go find out what the people who are working 40 hours, their boundaries are set. I mean, obviously there's times where it ebbs and flows.
Right.
And I studied them and found out that they had incredible dedication to committing to 3 goals a day. They were really focused on the needle movers. And I put together that training. This was years ago, about 12 years ago. And then people came to me and said, my wife is an entrepreneur. She left her job for freedom and she's fallen asleep with her laptop. How can we help her? Or, she left to be able to pick up the kids from the bus. And now I have somebody else picking the kids up from the bus because she doesn't have time to do that. And then other companies started asking me for this training. And so that's really how my business started in kind of a weird way. I was like, all right, I have to charge these people. So I need to figure out how to start a business. And I was still working in my corporate job.
Okay, so when did you eventually quit that corporate job to go full time with your job or your business now?
Yeah, that's a great question. I was doing workshops on the side. So I moved from one on one to workshops, and I was filling up those workshops on weekends. And I started thinking about putting together a course where I was like, hey, I'm based out of Arizona. I can't help somebody in Minnesota. They're not going to come down for this. And so I started really thinking about doing that. That was the January of 2020.
Okay.
And yeah. And then I was kind of like in a mastermind group, and I was like, I'm going to do this. I'm going to launch my course. Let's go. And then I got laid off, and it was supposed to be temporarily because of 2020. And I never went back.
Wow. So isn't it wild that that layoff to me was the perfect timing for you to catapult into what you wanted to do because you had already started it. It's such a great lesson for those listening. Starting a side hustle in order to start to see what you're good at, what you enjoy doing, what could make you money. That's one thing. It's a really great strategy. But two, you never know when you might need it in terms of going full time, or you never know where it can bring you to or where it can lead to. So the fact that you had already started something, thank God, right? Because if you hadn't, you would have had to scramble.
Yeah. And I always say I was like thrown into the deep end of the pool. You know what? I was really safe. And I now say what keeps you safe keeps you stuck. Because I
Amen.
was like, well, if this digital course thing doesn't work out, I still have this. I still have my health insurance. I still have my paycheck. And so I wasn't really serious. Like if I reflect back, I wasn't really serious. And I'm not sure I was really convinced that I could do it. I wasn't
Right.
really confident either.
Okay, so good to know. I wanted people to hear that you weren't positive this is going to work out and you weren't ready to go 100% all in, but the universe had a different plan for you. And so there you were laid off thinking, okay, well, I've got this thing, I might as well grow it. And now you've never gone back. You've never had a boss since that day, right?
Never. No. I get to pick who I want to work with.
Ah, such a great, great feeling for sure and a great experience. Okay, so tell me when you started to grow your email list. Did you know you needed to grow an email list right off the bat? Did you start growing it while you still had your 9 to 5 job? What did that look like? And what kind of spurred you to say, I probably should get an email list together?
Yeah. So when I first started, it was really referral based, which I'm very thankful for. I helped some people. They said, can you help some other people? And that kind of snowballed from there. And I never put them on the list. I mean, I could go in my email and probably find their emails, but I'm not doing that.
Okay.
But so that is how my business started. And then when I first launched my digital course, this was pre me going into Finding You and going into Digital Course Academy. I launched on my own. I had a very small, like little list I would post on Facebook, and then they would give me their email and I'd say I'd email you the details. It was super small. I knew every single person on that list though. So I could tell you who they were, maybe not all the details about them. I might not have met them in person, but we had a connection mostly on Facebook. And after that launch and discovering your podcast, your messaging and all that stuff, I'm like, eventually it's going to come to the point where I can't sell this to my friends anymore because I mean, I know there's one person who bought my course the first time who just bought it because she felt bad for me or maybe just wanted to support me. And I had a family member do that too. And so that's really when I decided, okay, I need to start building this list. And there's going to come a time where people are going to buy my course that I don't even know how they found me, which
Yeah.
is where I wanted to be.
Which is the magical place to be for sure. I remember when the first person out of the country bought my course, I thought, what? This is so wild and so exciting. And it opens your mind to so many opportunities for sure. Okay, so you started growing your email list. Did you start growing it before you were laid off or after? After, right?
After, yeah. So I started building the course, and then I hadn't created anything or the launch plan. And that's when I started putting it out there like, hey, if I do this, with really just kind of a shot in the dark, if I do this, would you be interested? If so, when I do, give me your email. When I do, I'll send you an email. And so I think I launched with around 50 people. So we're not talking about a huge list there, but they were, again, all people that I knew, which was a great feeling that people were interested in it. But that's, I think, where a little bit of the doubt came in, because I'm like, ooh, I'm spending a lot of time building this and only 50 people are interested.
Okay, I'm glad you said that because I wanted to ask you about some of the doubts that you had about launching, about growing an email list, and especially the doubts that you had that turned out not to necessarily be true in terms of growing your audience and growing your list. So, talk to me about that. So, one of your doubts was, I'm going to create this digital course and I only have 50 people on my email list. Is this going to be worth it? That was your first one, right?
Yeah, that was definitely a big doubt right there. And 50 people is a lot of people when you think about that. But then I was like, okay, and it's different because I'm going from in person to virtual. Do people even want that? I mean, at this point, we had just started the Zoom world. With a lot of people had just started the Zoom world in 2020. So then my next doubt was, is this sustainable? Will they do this year because we're all stuck on Zoom and they're bored? And then after that, I have to go back to in person. So is this real model sustainable? And that turned out to be false too.
Yes, thank goodness. So I love that. And also, okay, so let's take me back to the moment that you started to become serious about growing your email list. What did you do? Did you create a lead magnet? Did you already have a really big social media following that you could tap into? Like, what did it look like in the early days of growing your email list?
Yeah, so I did have a lot of friends on Facebook. I've been a speaker on college campuses in the nonprofit fundraising world. So I was privy to having already walking to the door with that. But they were my ideal clients or people who would take my course. These were just friends. Some, I ride horses, some of them were horse trainers. Like, they're not interested in my topic, but I still wanted to connect with them. So I launched the first time with 50 people, and I spent a lot of time and energy on it, and I made $397.
$397. Okay, take me back to that moment. How did you feel? What did you think? Because I've been in that similar situation. Where did your mind go with that? And you had been laid off of a job, right?
Yeah, I'd been laid off of a job, and I was getting paid through like 6 months, but this was month two.
Okay.
And so I immediately was like, oh, I have to figure out how to find a job. So let's do that. And I posted some things on LinkedIn. I was like, this isn't going to work. This isn't the way. Nobody wants my thing. And then what actually happened, which I think I would have quit if this hadn't happened, is I had students who were actually in the course say, you have really helped me.
Oh, okay. So you might not have sold a bunch of courses, but so how many courses is that? How many did you sell?
I think I sold 5 in that first one, and then spent money to do that, of course.
Yes. Okay. So then you back out the expenses and that's how you gotcha. So you have 5 people in this course, but some of them started saying, wait a second, this is really good. I'm getting results. Like, I'm so glad you created this course. And that's what you needed to hear.
Yeah, and one of them was my friend, and one of them was my family member. So we had really three people on the course. But they said, I want more of this, or hey, do you offer this, or do you do more one-on-one? I did and I started to see their progress through the course, and all 3 of them, they all finished the course
Whoa,
and
that's
did it. And then we've had dialogue. Some of them have become my clients after that. And so then that's when I realized I really have something to teach and to offer others. Now I need to figure out, I need to go back to, I was a very talented professional, I need to go back and figure out to the beginning how to do this the right way. And what could I bring from my talents to do it? But how do I learn this new industry? And I knew that I'd done that before. I went from education to nonprofit. I knew I could do that, but I needed to relearn.
Okay, Sarah, what you just said is so valuable, and I really want people to hear how important that message was. You were a very talented professional in your 9 to 5 job. And so when you went out on your own, this is brand new. Creating courses, building email lists, putting yourself out there on social media to sell something, all very foreign and brand new. But you didn't lose sight of the fact that wait, I've been a professional. I have figured out things before, moved from education to nonprofit. I can figure this out as well. I could take my, what I know to be true, my work ethic, my intelligence, and I could figure out something different. And you might be a newbie in it, but that doesn't mean you don't have a track record of figuring hard things out in the past. I love that you brought that up because a lot of my students, they get out here to create courses and build email lists and they feel like a fish out of water, but they forget that they have done really incredible things to lead up to this point, and we can't discount all of that. Love that you said that.
Yeah, one of the coolest parts about it that is I love learning. But I ran big teams and I used to always say to my team members, you got to learn what you need to learn to get started and then you have to get started.
Yeah.
And I had to take kind of my own advice of getting started because it's easy to, I could buy 500 courses on how to do what I needed to do. And I love all the information out there, but I needed to figure out what do I need to know. And one of somebody that I follow now used to always say, it's never what do you need to do, it's who needs to help you or who can help you do that. And so I went and found people. I said, who can help me turn my workshop into a digital course? And I don't know if it's the universe or it's the Facebook algorithm, but I landed on your platform and that's what happened.
Well, I'm very lucky because I really loved getting to know you and seeing how you navigate your business and your courses. So I feel very lucky that you landed on Digital Course Academy in general. Tell me this, when you were building your business and you were starting to kind of get out there and you had these really first three people that bought your email list, was after that first launch that you thought, okay, I'm going to need to grow this email list. I'm going to need a bigger audience. Is that when that happened?
Yeah, when I got into your world and I started really, I did all the homework. Spent 4 hours a week on Monday in a little pod, accountability pod, and I worked the program. That's when I started focusing on list growth. And so when I started, what I did when I started is different now. I decided I'm going to go all in on one thing. And then once I perfected that one thing, then I might add a podcast, or then I might add a Facebook group, or then I might add something else. And so for me, it was about providing one simple resource. And it was a quiz, but not a fancy quiz. It was just on a PDF document. You printed it yourself, you tallied it up. And it was just asking people to identify what's holding them back from achieving their goals.
Okay.
And my little tagline was, hint, it's not your 9 to 5. So I really thought about what was holding me back. And if you had asked me, I would have said it was my 9 to 5. I don't have time. I'm really busy. But that really wasn't it.
Okay, I'm sure people are like, well, what is it? Well, you're going to have to check out Sarah's stuff and I'll tell you where to go at the end. The little cliffhanger. So you created this quiz. Wait, I love the grassroots of it. It wasn't like with quiz technology. It wasn't a big old funnel that you created for this lead magnet. They downloaded a PDF and took the quiz like they were taking it out of a magazine back in the day. Is that right?
And I emailed it to them. It wasn't even, I at that point, I didn't have, MailChimp or anything like that. I posted it on Facebook. I said, if you're interested, DM me. I will email this to you. And that's how it started. And that really snowballed it for me because then, and just a little thing, it's different for everybody what's holding people back. And so then I was able to really tailor those conversations. So I did it scrappy.
Yes. Okay. So they take your quiz and they find out what's holding them back. And what might be holding Sally back is different than what's holding Mike back. So you have different categories, and everyone who got Sally's,
what was holding her back. So it
yeah.
could be not having the courage to make a change.
So for Sally, she didn't have courage. So you could send very specific emails to Sally and anyone else who got the not enough courage response, and you could send them an email that's more specific and personal.
Yeah, and at that time, I did it via Zoom. I recorded it and sent them the direct Zoom link. Total scrappy. It was nothing fancy.
What did you do in Zoom?
So I recorded a video on Zoom. It looks like the thing that's holding you back is you haven't found the courage to do this. And I'd record like a 5-minute video, and I'd just send them the Zoom recording video link.
Okay, this is fantastic. And did you send the same link if like 10 people got not enough courage, they all got that same video link?
We will. Yeah.
Perfect. Okay. I want people to really hear, because you have a wildly successful business today, but you started scrappy. You didn't have automation. You didn't have professional videos. You used Zoom. You recorded it. You sent them this link. Like, that's the part that you were a very, very successful professional before you started your business. Now you're starting your business and you're not afraid to get scrappy. And I think that part is important. Sometimes our ego gets in the way where we don't do anything because it doesn't look as polished as when we were used to in our 9-to-5 job. Like for me, I came from the Tony Robbins world. They had an entire marketing department. Everything looked amazing. I went out to send my own stuff out on my own after I quit that job. None of my stuff looked amazing. So I could easily say it doesn't look as good as when I worked for Tony Robbins. Yeah, I also didn't have a huge marketing team behind me. And so that scrappiness, willing to be scrappy, willing to be a beginner, willing to put yourself out there when it all doesn't look perfect, that's literally where you get to where you are today, having a successful business.
Yeah. And when I worked in corporate America, I was in meetings and we'd be like, it'd be a wild idea if we did XYZ. And I would walk out of the meeting, say to my team, they have this wild idea they want to do XYZ. I'd walk over to another meeting and I'd come back and my entire team had figured out how to do it. And I had a data guy, I had a tech guy, I had an editor, I had all this stuff. And I didn't have that when I first started. I have that now. I have different things now. I would totally do a quiz differently, but I didn't have all that. But what I did have is I had people who wanted to support me. And so some of the other friends who got laid off, they became the ones who helped me start my business. And now some of them went back to work. Some of them still work for me today as freelancers and do stuff like that. But the reality was people just wanted to connect with the person. They really connected with me because I took the time to send them that Zoom video link, because I took the time to email them, and I was able to do things in a much more high touch way. And that's how I built really my business.
Another great lesson I want you all to take away from this episode, in that you were teaching people how to reach their goals, right? That's what you do. And so that is a very, very saturated market. There's a lot of people and a lot of resources and software that help you reach your goals. Here you are, new on the scene, 50 people on your email list, but you're carving your own little space in the online world because of these high touch points. That is so important. You're making the Zoom videos. You're reaching out to them. You're acknowledging them. They feel seen and heard by you. So they could go to so many other people with way bigger audiences, way bigger teams, way bigger resources, but they came to you. And you are proof that you only need a tiny sliver of the internet to pay attention to be able to grow your business. Okay, so I love these takeaways. I know we're not just talking about email marketing, but I can't help myself because I love the way that you've grown your successful business. But let's take it back to email. So you created this quiz. Did you have several lead magnets out there? Did it start to make an impact to grow your email list?
So I did that one first, and I really focused on that. And that I think was so important to the success, because I was able to really cultivate those leads. So as you know, I come from a fundraising and sales background. And what I was always taught when you're throwing a party for a nonprofit is you need to think about those people standing in your living room.
Yes, yes.
So if I have 5 people standing in the living room and I don't even come out to greet them because I'm waiting for more people to show up, Or I walk out and say, hey guys, thanks for coming, but I'm waiting for more people to show up. That makes people feel like, oh, we're waiting for the more important people or not valued. And so I created that lead magnet, and I spent a lot of time. The second time I launched, I had 368 people on my email list, but I engaged them. They were engaged. That list was engaged. I didn't just get them on the list and then say, well, I have to get 100 more names before I can do something. I did little things with them. So that's how that started. And then before I introduced my next lead magnet, now I have many. Before I introduced my next one, I made sure that the first one was working and those people were taken care of.
Great. Yes, that's my rule that I teach my students as well, in the sense of let's just focus on one at a time. Let's get the conversion to where you want it to go to be, wherever that is. And then from there, we can add on. Because the question I get asked a lot is, should I create a bunch of lead magnets? Well, you could over time. Like you and I have been at this for a while. So over time, you're thinking of new lead magnets, new opportunities, one at a time, get it working, and then you can move on to the next one. So I'm really glad that you did it that way as well.
And then what's cool, sorry, I'll add one thing. What's cool is when you engage that audience, they actually come up with what your next lead magnets are.
Yes.
They start telling you, it'd be really great if we had this resource. And then I decide, is that an offer or is that a lead magnet?
That's such a great point. Action creates clarity. Get out that first lead magnet. They will absolutely tell you what they want next or more of. So such a great point, especially if you take the time to listen. You got to slow down and you got to listen. They will tell you what to make or create next. Okay, so I've heard you say before that you used to hesitate when it came to sending out multiple emails, like afraid to annoy your audience. So how and why did that change? And how did you go about making sure that your emails provided value? So first, talk a little bit about what kind of emails are you sending out so people understand? And then what came about that fear of like, I'm sending too many emails, I'm going to annoy everyone. So common for people to feel.
I'll go back to the using my talents. I was really good in the fundraising world of making sure that we knew where all our donors were in the process. Like, are we warming them up? Are we getting them asking for money? And I think that comes from that's something that you also need to do in marketing, is being really organized. So I started tagging everybody. Where did this person come into my world? Was it from this lead magnet? Have we communicated with them? And so, of course, there's emails that go out with the lead magnet that I built. But then I realized that, okay, after they do that, then that stops. There's a point in time where, that those emails end and something else has to take over. And that's when I started doing a weekly email. And at first I was like, oh, weekly. I don't know if I would want to hear from myself weekly. But one of my bosses said to me when we did online fundraising a long time ago, he said, nobody at the Bed Bath & Beyond corporate office is sitting up there and saying, we shouldn't send another email today.
Oh my God.
They just send one.
Yes, I've never heard it explained like that, but you are absolutely right.
Yeah. And so I thought about Bed Bath & Beyond. And, when he said that originally, I was like, yeah, you're right. I mean, they just sent another email. And yet I have not unsubscribed from those. I was still getting them. But if I wanted to, I certainly knew how to do that. And I never was annoyed when they sent me one. I just would either delete it or download the coupon and go buy something. And so I really had to start thinking about my business as a business. And it's not personal when somebody unsubscribes. They've either met the life cycle or they've moved on to something else or got what they needed and they just need a cleaner inbox. But I had to become a business rather than personally saying, oh, I don't want to send another email. And that goes from when you have friends on your email to when you are now working with clients and people who are looking for your help and support and that transformation. And so I had to make that flip in the switch that, yes, it's a personal business, it's a personal brand, but it is a business.
It is a business. Exactly. So those of you who are thinking, oh my gosh, I shouldn't send another email, you have to first make sure that your emails are valuable. And I want to talk to you about that in a moment. But let's just assume you are sending out value. I always say it is my job to help people take action in my area of expertise. And that's going to take several emails. It's never just one. Especially if it's something new and scary to them, they're going to need the encouragement. And so I'm going to send them what they need until they take action. So I definitely had to change mindset around weekly emails, or in a promo, if I send 2 or 3 a day, people are like, what? And I've absolutely seen it to work, but you have to get out of your comfort zone for sure. And I think that if you are a little bit uncomfortable with sending the emails or the amount of emails in the beginning, you're probably not sending enough, because that is a very natural feeling. Even if you're sending 1 a week, it's a little jarring in the beginning when you just get started. But can you talk to me about, how did you make sure that your emails provided value? Like, how did you know what to be sending on a weekly basis? How did you make sure that people wanted what you were sending? What did that look like for you?
So I do seasonal topics, like a month I might focus on something, or another couple, 3 months I might do talk, especially leading up to the new year, or July is a big slump where people realize they haven't made progress towards what they set out to do. And I really try and put myself in their shoes. Like, what could somebody be thinking right now? Like, well, I'm at home with the kids. I have all these things to do, and my job is taken over, and this is something I really want to achieve, but this has to come first because this keeps my house operating. And so that's how I really draft those emails. Now, I don't have kids at home, so I ask questions like, do you feel like this? And if so, then here are some tips and tricks that you might be able to get through it. And I just really craft those emails first, and then that funnels into my social and funnels into my podcast. So I'm talking about all the same thing on all the same areas. If somebody comes on my podcast and we're talking about this, and then they get an email and they're like, this is great, but it's totally not related to what you were just talking about.
Yeah.
So I try and keep that very tight. But every once in a while, like a couple weeks ago, I was like, oh, I need to record a podcast about taking action and why that holds people back. And I recorded it, and I normally my emails are on a Wednesday, and I send an email out on a Monday. I was like, this was on my heart. Like, this client told me they can't do it because they have to outline the whole process out, and that'll take them 3 months. And by the time they do all that, the ship has sailed. Yeah. So I think it's just being really cognizant of what would I want in my inbox and what reaches me. And just knowing that not every person reads every email you send. That would be great if they did. But many times they need to see the same message a couple times in different ways, or just at different times.
Yes, for sure. Absolutely. And I was thinking, all the things that you've done to grow your email list, can you think of anything that's really worked for you beyond, that quiz that you created, which I love? If people are listening and they're like, I just need some ideas of how to get started, or some trends that are working right now, or what's really working in email marketing, or what's one thing you do to ensure that your emails get open, or whatever that might be, what are some tips that you have for us?
The first thing that I spent a lot of time on, other than that first lead magnet, is creating a format of how my lead templates would look. And I outlined it all. I'm a systems gal, Amy. I know you love a good system, but I outlined every step. This is how we create the worksheet. This is how we create the landing page. This is how the thank you page goes. And so when I do get an idea for a lead magnet, or somebody brings it up, I'm able to get a lead magnet out there in a week.
Okay, this is big. So essentially, for those of you who are really new at email list building, you're going to need your lead magnet, like your PDF, but you need a registration page. Once they register, you want a confirmation page letting them know, hey, this went out. And then you need an email to deliver whatever it is you promised. So you're saying you got that all templatized. You have a process for it. So the minute you have an idea, you can drop the email information in, but you're never starting from scratch.
I'm never starting from scratch. And at first, my doubt was, well, they're all going to look the same. Now, I do different colors. So I'll say, well, this is going to be in this brand color. This is going to be in this brand color. And so the social looks different. Stuff looks different. But I have to remember that I'm not trying to get the people that are already on my list attention. It's great if they find the resource great. I'm trying to get the attention of new people. And so I've done a lot to make sure my marketing, my Facebook ads, I'm excluding the people who are already there at the party, and I'm having new people. So I had to get over that doubt of, well, I don't want people to know that this worksheet or this PDF looks similar. The content completely different, but it's a similar format. But that's what's made it easy for my team, because I don't have to, I look at the website, the new language is there. I don't have to worry about why is this button over here and why is that box not lining up. That makes it really easy to get things out and timely. Like, and I now have a Facebook group that's another lead magnet for me, because I promote my lead magnets on there. And somebody could post in the group, it'd be really great if I have this resource, and I'll say I'll have that to you by Friday.
I mean, come on. I love that. Because when people ask, like, should you have a lot of lead magnets? The other question I often get is, why do you have so many lead magnets? And for me, and I want you to answer this as well, we have so many lead magnets because they tend to be aligned with different promotions we're doing, different campaigns. So if I'm launching Digital Course Academy, I'm going to have a lot of lead magnets around building a digital course. But sometimes I launch List Builder Society, so I'm going to have lead magnets around growing your email list. Sometimes I'm an affiliate for somebody, let's say Stu's membership program. I'm going to create a lead magnet around memberships. And it's all to what I call prime the pump, which is easing people into starting to think about this topic, trusting me around this topic, asking questions, engaging around the topic before I sell. I like to give value before I sell anything. So is that the reason why you also are having multiple lead magnets?
Yeah, and different messages resonate with different people. I don't subscribe to SMART goals, and I do talk about goal setting. And so one of my more popular lead magnets has been SMART goals don't work, and here's why.
Yes.
And for some people, they're like, I've been doing that my whole life. That message doesn't resonate with me. Or, there's just different topic areas. And that's where I think it's really cool. If you're organized in your list, like I tag them by what they came in as, and then I can later send them special things just to them.
That's so important too. When you're growing your email list, or if you've been at it for a while, but you're not doing this, creating a tagging system to allow you to understand what people are interested in based on what they signed up for allows you to personalize your marketing. So if your emails aren't resonating or people not opening, maybe you need to focus more on segmenting versus just a big, email, whatever, to everyone. And when we started segmenting more, we definitely saw a lot higher conversions and more engagement. So I'm glad you brought that up. You could ease into it, start out simple, but tagging why they came into your email list is so important.
Well, and somebody says when you speak to everyone, you speak to no one. And so really, I don't know who that person is, but they should quote themselves on that. But that really, when somebody speaks directly to you and you're reading an email and you're like, oh my gosh, like that's me today. My desk is a mess. I'm running late, behind all day, and I need a solution. Then they can take action and use that resource to do it when they feel heard and they feel like there's a solution to that problem.
Yes, for sure. Okay, so I'm loving that we dove into this and really got to see your journey with list building and what it has allowed you to do. What advice would you give other entrepreneurs that are listening, but they really just haven't put their email list as a priority? Everything else has gotten in the way, but they're also struggling to make money online, and that this email list could help with that. So what would you say to them if they haven't really taken it seriously yet?
You need to get started, because that's the hardest part. But building that pipeline really does then sustain your business. And I still get referrals today, but there may be a day when I don't. And that getting started part is the hardest part. But once you get started, it's actually really fun.
So
I
true.
love creating resources for people.
Yes, I do too. That's the fun part for sure. So you're right. It's just that setting the foundation, getting started. I think that's the part that stops people in their tracks. But once they do that, it just becomes way more enjoyable.
Yeah, and don't let the tech get you overwhelmed. That was, my beginning. I don't do that this way now, but
Yeah.
my beginning was like I have the Zoom tool, it records, there's a link. I don't need a website. I'll just email it to them. I opened a little Gmail and there we were.
Okay, I love Scrappy. Start somewhere because you'll get to where Sarah is today with a thriving, successful business, but she started Scrappy. And I love that message so much. Sarah, where can people learn more about you? What's your website, social? They're going to want to check your stuff out.
Yeah, for sure. I like to keep things simple. So it's saramayer.com, Mayer.
So it's SARAMAYER.com.
Yeah. And then my podcast, that's where I like to hang out. It's the Bold Goal Crusher podcast.
Such a great name. We'll link to everything in the show notes. Thank you so much for coming on the show and talking about my most favorite topic other than digital courses, but we talked about them both. So this is my very favorite episode. Thank you for being a part of our community and engaging so much with the other students. And I really, really love to hear your success. So thanks again.
Yeah, thank you. And thank you for sharing your gift with all of us.
Thank you, my friend. Take care.
You too.
So there you have it. Listen, if you know you need to grow that email list, but you are struggling to get started, I've got a free resource for you. Of course I do, right? I want you to go to amyporterfield.com/email list. So that's amyporterfield.com/email list. This is my free masterclass, how to have a 10,000 subscriber year. And I'll not only teach you how to get that email list started, but how to create one that will actually make you money. Because I'm all about making money, right? I want you to make money. I want you to make an impact. Let's grow an email list that will allow you to do both. So all you need to do is go to amyporterfield.com/email list, choose a time that works best for you, and then let's start building an email list that's primed and ready for your future digital course launch, membership launch, mastermind launch, coaching launch, whatever you want to do. This email list will make everything easier in your business, but my friend, you have to get started. So thanks for joining me for another episode of Online Marketing Made Easy. I'll see you next week. It's amyporterfield.com/email list. Bye for now.